He paid just $6 for a wounded German shepherd. People said it was foolish. But days later, the dog did something that left the town speechless. What seemed like a broken stray turned out to be a missing military K9, and his courage would heal a lonely boy and change a community forever. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. The morning was pale and thin. Mist settled over quiet fields, and the wood of the old barn held the night's cold like a memory. It was early, the kind of hour when a town like Maple Ridge still feels half asleep, and only the distant crows remember the world is moving. Ethan Parker walked beside his grandmother Mary over the worn dirt path that led to Simmons's salvage yard. Ethan was 9, small for his age, with short brown hair and a navy hoodie faded around the elbows. He spoke little, but his eyes moved with a quiet longing, as if he searched for something the world kept hidden. Mary, 63, walked with the calm of someone who had seen war and the fields that come after it. Her gray sweater held the scent of wood smoke. Her boots marked the soil with a slow rhythm. She had once been an army nurse, though she never spoke of it aloud. When she did speak, her voice was gentle and level, shaped by years of holding pain without letting it break her. The salvage yard rose from the fog like a forgotten hillside of rust. Simmons stood at the gate, a heavy man of 55, with thick arms and a tired chin full of unshaven gray. His shirt was stained by metal dust. His voice held no softness, shaped instead by the long years of selling what others had thrown away. "Looking for something specific, Mary?" he asked, not looking at the boy. Mary shook her head. She was here to trade an old kettle for lumber. But Ethan did not hear the men speaking. His attention had fallen toward the old barn at the far edge of the yard, where a patch of straw lay damp beneath a broken beam of sunlight. Something moved there, slow as a breath. Ethan stepped closer. A German shepherd lay tied to a post by rough rope, his coat dark sable under mud, ribs showing like shadows. One leg held little weight. The dog's eyes were half closed, not in sleep, but in exhaustion. 6 years old, perhaps, but age meant little when pain did the counting. Ethan did not speak. He only knelt, small hands resting on his knees, breathing the scent of damp straw and rusted wood. The dog lifted his eyes. No sound, just the small recognition of being seen. Behind Ethan, Mary's footsteps stopped. Something in her gaze changed, just a flicker at first, like a memory rising too quickly. In another life, she had seen soldiers with the same stillness in their eyes. Simmons followed the boy's stare. "He's no good," the man said. "Leg's bad. Won't work the field. Take him if you want. $6. The words were careless, thrown out like scrap metal. Ethan reached into his hoodie pocket, pulling out crumpled bills. $6 saved from selling eggs, from sweeping the porch, from quiet mornings of wanting something he could hold close. His hand trembled only once, then steadied. Mary wanted to stop him. She saw how thin the dog was, how broken. But the certainty in the boy's face reminded her of young medics who stitched wounds under fire without shaking. Simmons took the money without looking. "Your problem now." The rope fell away. The German shepherd stood slowly, favoring one leg, but his steps were sure. He walked to Ethan as if he had known this path before. The boy rested a hand on his shoulder, feeling the rough coat, the pulse of quiet strength beneath the pain. "His name is Max," Ethan whispered, not choosing, but discovering. Mary watched them both, a weight stirring in her memory, something she could not yet name. They walked home across the silent fields. Morning light widened over the valley, soft and forgiving. Ethan kept his hand on Max's back, step by step. For the first time in a long while, the boy did not look alone. And Mary, walking slightly behind, carried the private thought that fate sometimes arrives, not with thunder, but with fragile breath and wounded legs. At the farmhouse door, Ethan paused. Max stood beside him, tired but steady. The boy breathed in the smell of old wood, hay, and winter air. "You're safe now," he said, not loudly, but with all the truth he had. And the dog, as if answering, let out a long, quiet sigh. Rain came lightly in the early evening, tapping on the tin roof like a quiet hand trying to remember a song. The house was old wood, warm from the stove in the kitchen. Ethan sat cross-legged beside Max on a blanket near the window, where the glass fogged with their breathing. The dog lay still, his dark sable coat rising and falling with each slow breath. 6 years old, though the weight of his bones made him seem older. Ethan read from a children's book, voice soft and careful, almost as if he feared breaking something invisible in the air. The boy was gentle by nature. Some children have a wild morning in them. Ethan had the evening. He moved like dusk, quiet, thoughtful, carrying a sort of unspoken longing. Mary watched from the table. At 63, she had the posture of someone who learned to stand straight long after fatigue tried to bend her. Her hair was silver gray, cropped short for convenience, her beige sweater holding faint smells of hay and coffee. Once, she had treated wounded soldiers, hands steady in chaos, voice steady in fear. The memory of that work never left her. She saw too many men lie still the same way Max did now, breathing not quite deeply enough, eyes open yet turned inward. She said little, but in her silence there was knowledge. Night deepened. The television played softly, a documentary about an old battalion. Marching boots echoed through the room. It happened so fast, yet so gently, the shift in Max. His ears rose, posture straightened. A wave of recognition passed through his muscles. Ethan paused mid-sentence, eyes wide. Max did not bark. He simply listened, body aligned, as if waiting for a command from a voice he could no longer hear. Then the moment faded. Max lowered himself back to the blanket, slow and stiff, as though unsure of waking or dreaming. Ethan felt something stir in him, like the first hint that the world is larger than a child imagines. 2 days later, Ethan accidentally dropped a steel pan in the kitchen. The sound slammed into the room like lightning striking metal. Before Mary could speak, Max lunged forward, placing his body between Ethan and the noise, head lowered, eyes sharp. There was no fear, only duty. It was instinct carved into him long before this small wooden house. Ethan stood frozen, his heart knocking inside his ribs like it wanted to tell a secret. He touched Max's shoulder, feeling the tremble of muscle and memory beneath fur. At dusk, when children turned shadows into shapes, Ethan knelt in the barn and played with his hands like holding a pretend pistol. "Bang!" he whispered with a shy smile. Max dropped instantly, lying motionless with a precision too perfect for games. Ethan blinked, the breath caught in his throat. Mary stepped closer, her boots brushing straw. The look in her eyes was not fear, it was recognition and sorrow, and something deeper that only people who have lived long enough can understand. "Ethan," she said, voice low. "He wasn't just someone's dog. He was trained, serious training." Ethan swallowed. He looked at Max, not as a pet, but as someone with memories heavier than bones. The boy pressed his forehead to Max's neck. "You're safe now," he whispered again, almost prayer-like. This time, Max's tail moved, not a wag, but a quiet acknowledgement, like a man who has been carrying silence for too many years and finally hears someone speak his name. The grass was still wet from the morning rain, and the sun slipped through the trees in loose ribbons of pale gold. Ethan walked along the edge of the woods behind the farm, chasing light the way children chase wonder, without fear of distance or time. His steps were small, but his mind felt wide, open to things he did not yet understand. Max stayed close behind, walking with a quiet steadiness, his dark sable coat brushing against tall grass. The dog had grown stronger over the past weeks, though his limp still showed itself on cold mornings. Sometimes Ethan would lean his hand against Max's shoulder, not to guide the dog, but because it gave the boy comfort. Max accepted the touch with a kind of solemn patience, as if he recognized the gesture from another life. Far into the clearing, the wind changed. Something in the air stiffened, the kind of silence that arrives before instinct finds its voice. A rustle broke from the brush. It was quick, sharp, like branches tearing. A young black bear rushed forward, startled from its path, eyes wide, body clumsy with fear. Ethan froze. The world became a narrow hallway made of breath and heartbeat. Before the boy took a step, Max leaped. It was not the wild jump of a house dog. It was precise, shaped by muscle memory, born of training that did not fade. He circled the bear, moving left to draw attention, lowering his frame to shield the boy's body. His growl was deep, not angry, but commanding. The bear turned, confused by the motion, and fled into the brush. The trees swallowed sound again. Ethan fell to his knees, arms around Max's neck, tears shaking loose like he had been holding them for much longer than this moment. Max did not move, only kept still so the boy could cry. Mary found them minutes later, having heard the echo of danger from the house. She said nothing at first. She only placed her hand on Max's back, slow, firm, and looked into the dog's eyes with the quiet grief of someone who has seen courage in places where it never should have been asked to live. Later that week, Ethan and Mary walked into town. The storm had passed, leaving puddles along the gravel road. Outside the general store, a girl slipped near the drainage ditch, her foot lost beneath the slick mud. She was 8 years old, light brown hair tied back, wearing a yellow sweater too thin for the chill. Her name, someone shouted later, was Amelia. The water pulled her down, shock freezing her voice. Before Ethan could run, Max broke from his side, diving into the ditch without hesitation. The splash was heavy, the kind of sound that can break a lifetime into before and after. Max pushed the girl upward, guiding her toward the bank with controlled strength, teeth gripping her sleeve only long enough to lift her out. A man ran forward, tall, 36, beard trimmed close, eyes wide with disbelief. His name was David Brooks. He scooped Amelia into his arms, voice shaking with relief, thanking a dog who could not answer in words. Townspeople gathered, faces soft with awe. A dog once called Broken had saved 2 children in the span of days. When David looked at Max, there was recognition, like a soldier remembering a silhouette from a different battlefield. Mary decided there was more to understand. She took Max to the clinic where Dr. Howard Simmons, a calm man with dark hair and a gentle voice, examined the dog. He ran his fingers along the neck, stopping at a scar just beneath the collar. A metallic chip sat under the skin. He scanned it. Data flickered on the screen, small letters holding a heavy truth. Echo 7, K9 unit, missing in action, 18 months. Ethan felt the words stop time. He wrapped his arms around Max and pressed his face into rough fur. The boy spoke slowly, like he was telling his heart to trust its own softness. Whether you're Echo 7 or Max, you're family. The room was quiet in a way that becomes a promise. Morning came soft over Maple Ridge, with pale sun sliding through thin clouds and resting on the fields like quiet forgiveness. News had a way of traveling in small towns, passed over fences, across the counters of diners, written in the dust of tires rolling down old roads. Within a week, people began arriving at Mary's farmhouse with baskets of food, small cards, and soft voices full of wonder. A story like Max carried something older than words, the belief that broken things can be whole again. Ethan stood by the door, shy in his faded navy hoodie, unsure why strangers smiled at him with the warmth of kin. Max lay near his feet, calm and still, his dark sable coat now brushed smooth. The dog watched each visitor with steady eyes, not fearful, not proud, only present, as if accepting a kindness he never expected to feel again. David Brooks came one evening, taller than most men in town, 36 years old, shoulders strong, but posture slightly bent, like someone who had carried too much weight in silence. The trim of his beard showed care, yet his eyes held the tired depth of someone who had seen young men grow old in moments. He stood at the doorway with Amelia, the girl he had lifted from the ditch. Her yellow sweater was clean now, her small hand wrapped around her father's thumb. "He saved her," David said quietly, his voice deep but shaken by gratitude. "He once saved men like me. Now he saved my daughter." Mary looked at him, understanding something unspoken. Two soldiers, different wars. One walked on 2 legs, one on 4. A reporter from the local paper later wrote the story under the headline, "K9 Echo 7 Survives, Finds Home Through a 9-Year-Old Boy." The article spread beyond Maple Ridge. Letters arrived with postmarks from towns Mary had never visited. People sent dog treats, coupons, drawings from children who believed heroes come with paws. Some veterans wrote notes in rough handwriting thanking Ethan for caring for a brother left behind. Ethan read them slowly, tracing each word with quiet awe. For the boy, the attention felt overwhelming, but in Max's steady breathing beside him, he found the courage to speak when invited to the community hall. The hall was small, wood-paneled, built decades ago to hold school plays and winter dances. Ethan walked onto the stage with hands tucked in his sleeves. The audience was silent, the kind of silence that holds stories instead of emptiness. Max sat at his side, posture straight, tail resting gently on the floor. Ethan looked out at the faces, Mary's eyes soft with pride, David's shoulders bowed in gratitude, Amelia holding a drawing of Max in both hands. The boy drew a breath the way children do when they trust someone to catch their words. "I didn't buy a dog," Ethan said, voice plain and steady. "I found a friend. People say I rescued Max, but I think Max rescued me from being alone." No one clapped at first. There are truths that ask for quiet before applause. Then the room rose in a slow wave, people standing not for the boy or the dog, but for the small miracle they represented, the redemption that begins in unlikely places, with crumpled dollars and gentle hands. Weeks passed. With Mary's knowledge as a former Army nurse and the help of Dr. Simmons, Max grew calm. His dreams no longer shook the bed. The tremor in his sleep faded, replaced by long breaths that sounded like rivers settling into their paths. The school counselor asked if Max could visit classrooms, to sit with children who feared storms, loud noises, or the loneliness that visits young hearts. Ethan agreed, standing beside Max as he walked halls full of bright lockers and quiet battles. Max became what war had not allowed him to be, a healer. One night, when winter hovered outside the window and moonlight laid silver patterns on the quilt, Ethan stroked Max's head. The dog's breath was even, his body at rest. The boy whispered a promise so soft it belonged to both of them. "You're safe here." Max exhaled, slow and deep. The world outside was quiet. Inside, the last light stayed. In every town there are people like Echo 7 and Ethan, hurt souls who find each other by grace. Many of us grow old carrying memories, loneliness, pain, and quiet battles no one sees. But a small act of kindness can light the darkest room. If you're watching this, know you are not forgotten. Your story still matters, even in silence. Share this video, leave a comment, subscribe, and let others feel hope again. May God bless your health, comfort your days, ease your illness, and protect every heart still searching for love.